What's up, Big Daddy?
Let's go.
How are you, brother?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm good. Just a couple boys from bumfuck Alberta, eh? Sitting here, and where are we?
We're right in the Los Angeles. Where are we? Sunset?
Yeah.
Sunset. Yeah. It's been a while since I've been back to LA. Since I moved to Vegas.
Yeah. I think my first time here was 1990. Would have been 98. And I went out to a place called Ventura, California.
Yeah.
Because you lived on the, what was that, PCH?
I lived on PCH, yeah.
Yeah, and I was
Malibu.
And I was in the yellow bus going to rehab on the fucking yellow bus.
I was sitting having a beer in the pool going, look at those drunks.
You're having a beer in the pool, right? Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Oh my God, buddy. But dude, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
No, really.
I'm glad.
We've got such a unique relationship, and I think looking back at it, I cherished our relationship like early on when we were young, right? And we were, going to the, whatever it was in Edmonton every night back then. Fuck, there was ladies' night, right?
Yeah.
And we're having a good time. And then I'll never forget, I remember you were playing for the Devils, and I was playing for the Sharks. And I said, Hammer, you want to go out? He said, yeah, Myhres, meet me out at wherever, right? So I went out and I started getting at it pretty good, right? I remember saying to myself that night, because you were there, I'm like, I'm fucking doing one line of coke and that's it. I'm not doing any more than one, right? Because I don't want, the big man's there and all that, right?
Yeah.
And I went into the shitter and I chopped this line up and I did it. I said, okay, there's your one. And the next thing I remember, you were gone.
Oh, yeah. You went to the bathroom and I went downstairs.
You were gone.
Yeah.
You fucking voodooed out the back door.
Yeah.
And then I ended up at this party downtown New York. We had to practice. So I was with San Jose. The urine tester was showing up that day on Long Island at 2 o'clock because our practice was at 11, bro. And I just snorted an 8-ball of coke, and there's no way that I'm coming clean on that test, right?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget, I get in the cab. It took me a half an hour to get a cab. I didn't know where we were skating, pregame skate that day. I said, just take me to where the Islanders play, right?
Yeah.
Hit the red light, open the door, puke, fucking slam the door back, get to the rink, okay? Yeah. And I won't name the guy, you know who you are.
Yeah.
But I said, don't pass me the puck. Because if you pass me the puck, that means that I got to fucking handle it and I got to shoot it, right?
Yeah.
So I get through pregame skate. Now I've got to dodge the urine tester because he's fucking waiting, right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember how I did it, but I slid out the back and I got on the bus right away. And we went from there to Jersey.
Yeah.
And then I just remember having to pay another big fine for missing the test.
Well, you texted me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long journey. That's the first NHL encounter I think we had.
Yeah, it was.
Since we had grown up.
Yeah.
I remember you texted me later on that day, and you're like, oh my God, what a night, Where'd you go? And I said, Myhres, I seen this book before, so I left. And the next morning we played you guys, and your coach came to me after my morning skate.
Big D, Daryl.
Daryl Sittler, yeah, Daryl Sutter.
Yeah.
And he says, what'd you do to Myhres last night? I'm like, buddy, I go, hey, I left. I go, hey, don't tell Lou anything because I'm, my GM. But yeah, that was our first probably where we had both made it and we're making NHL paychecks.
NHL paychecks.
Yeah, and we had a lot of long road to get to there even. I've known you since I was 14.
Yeah, because I Grand Center, which turned into Cold Lake in 1996, but I'm from Grand Center. I grew up there. You were Elk Point, correct?
Yeah, born in Elk Point. I'm from Fishing Lake.
Fishing Lake, though, right? Yep. Mom and everybody there.
Yeah.
And then you went away at our first real hockey encounter was Tri-Cities when you would have been 16 or 17, your draft year.
Yeah, I was 17 years old.
Yeah, and I was playing for Spokane or Lethbridge.
You got traded to Spokane. It went way back. I remember watching you play for Bonnyville, which was the closest town to Grand Center.
Yeah.
That had a good hockey team, and you were a young guy playing there. I remember you were like, thought you were like Eric Lindros. You had 88, you had your shirt tucked in, and
White
you were
gloves.
like a good player,
Yeah.
And I remember seeing you, and you're only a couple years older than me. And anyways, I knew who you were. Our dads became friends because they shared that we were hockey guys. And I remember seeing you at a fair in Bonnyville and saying hi to you. And you were intimidating back then because even you were the toughest guy in the Western League, which for me growing up was like the NHL. Like that was the feeder league to the NHL, right?
Me too.
So to play in the Western League was like, that was, you're somebody. Someone's, you're doing something right. And, you were legendary for your toughness in juniors. And I remember you got traded, and I was playing Tri-Cities, you were playing Spokane. I mean, we'd been squared off in the bars before this, right? We'd done a lot of crazy shit together. And and I remember before the game, you'd got traded from Lethbridge to Spokane. It was our biggest rival. And we had a tough team, and so did you guys. You guys in Spokane had a tough team, and they got you. And I remember sitting in the dressing room, 17 years old, I'm minding my business, and all our tough guys were like, hey, just let, Myhres just sleep tonight, and, we don't need no trouble. And then they read off the starting lineup, and I was on the starting lineup, and I stood up, I grabbed my helmet, I said, fuck, I'm going for a shift. And the guys were like, relax. And we fought.
I smiled at you in warm-up.
Yeah.
I thought we were buddies.
Yeah, we were buddies. Thank God we were buddies. I wouldn't have fought you if we weren't buddies.
I'm like, how you doing, Hammer?
Yeah.
Back then it wasn't Hammer.
No,
it was Sheldon.
Yeah.
I'm like, Shelly, how you doing, bro? We were warming up. The last thing I thought is you wanted to fucking fight me.
Totally. I didn't want to. It was just, it was funny because I knew you then, and I knew we were friends, right?
Yeah.
And I knew if you wouldn't kill me if you kicked the shit out of me. We got in a fight, and you took it easy on me. I broke my leg. And the funniest thing about that was it probably helped my draft rating. I missed that half the year, but you had such a big your resume, your attitude, everything. You were just a big guy, and I'm glad we became friends after that, and we've shared a lot of life history. But we started out when I was like 14 years old knowing you. Dude, 13 maybe.
It was at a county fair.
Yeah.
I just remember somebody going, "Hey, Brantt," and I turn around, and it's just, you were young, you were 14 or 15, but you were a fucking monster back then.
It was pretty big. Yeah,
yeah, the shit kickers on, I think.
Pull my dad's boots, 2 sizes too big.
Rick's boots. Yeah. But and then we, it's funny how like we went off. We did our thing in the minors because you played in the minors. And I think right around that time, I would have been 17 or 18. That's when I started to struggle with alcohol. Yeah. No drugs at that point, but the alcohol was becoming heavy because, as you know, in my drafter, I had, 42 fights that year. And my dad said to me, he's like, I'm like, Dad, big year. And he's like, yeah, a really big year. You've worked your whole life for this. I said, so any advice? Like, what do I got to do? He says, well, son, he said, you got to lead the whole Canadian Hockey League or the whole CHL, which was part of the States.
Everything was the whole, it was Ontario,
in fighting majors.
It was Quebec, it was everywhere back then. I think it probably still is. But.
And I said, really, like the whole thing? And he goes, yeah. And if you lead the whole CHL in fights, he says, I promise you, son, you're going to get drafted. Yeah. So I did. I went out and had those fights, and I was ranked to get drafted. Yeah. And I just remember, do you remember Carlos Sosa?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I was like, listen, man, I'm this fucking big shot, right? I'm like, listen, I want 10 grand. I go, I'm going to sign a big hockey card deal. I want 10 grand. Yeah. I'm going in the second. Yeah. Right? I was rated in the second round, right? I go, I'm going in the second. Here's the paper, right? Yeah. Which I was, okay? Yeah. I want 10 grand, and I want you to fly my dad, my grandma, my grandpa, and my sister into Montreal for the 92 draft. Yeah. And he was done. He was awesome. So we get to the draft. He gives me the 10 grand. We get to the draft. Fucking first round goes by, nothing. Second round goes by, no name. I'm going in the third. Third round, no name. Fourth round, no name. I'm going, what the fuck?
It's all in one day though back then, right?
One day.
It's 2 days. Yeah. So a long day.
Long day.
My God.
So finally, he looks over and says, Tampa's taking you. And then at that point, everything you've worked for, you know. But I just remember that night cruising the streets, and I had, you know, not a lot of money. I think I had $100 left, and it was my first ever experience with a prostitute. And it was a guy named Jeff. We'll call him Jeff. And this girl goes, "Hey, big boy." She's like, "You want to have some fun?" And I said, I was loaded. I said, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah,
you know, and she goes, "You got money for a hotel room?" And I looked at Jeff and I go, "Why does she want me to pay for a hotel room?" He's like,
yeah.
Right?
She's, yeah.
And that, as I write about in the book, that was my first time of really like disrespecting myself and disrespecting women, you know.
Yeah.
And I think because, you know, I look at you with your mother, like Mama Bear, and I, you know, I always yearned for that. I got that with my Grandma Jo, but I wanted it from my mom, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't get that love and attention from your mother, you start to try and look for that
for sure.
in other ways.
Do shit that's not like your character, really.
Yeah, I didn't really want to be doing that kind of stuff. But, you know, I think that as me and you progressed in our careers, you saw, like, what did you think about when you started hearing me going through the treatment centers and the rehabs and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we go back a long ways, right? I think people don't realize how far back we go, and you know, our dads were similar guys.
Yeah.
We just shared a lot of the same friends. We were on the same path to playing hockey, and we understood each other. We hadn't really become close when we were young per se, but we did get close right around that junior time where we got in a fight, and we just became close. You always checked on me, and I always looked up to you like a big brother, right?
Yeah.
And you were one of the only guys that I know who made it from being a kid, like that I actually knew, right? There was guys that I played against and stuff that make the NHL, but you were a guy that I actually knew, that I had a personal relationship with. And we weren't saints as kids, for sure. I knew that. I knew you had a wild hair. We were a little different in that I was really afraid to get in trouble when I was a kid, right? Like I didn't want to screw my career up. You know, my dad was an alcoholic. His dad's an alcoholic. My uncles like to have fun. They wouldn't call themselves alcoholic, but I grew up around in this culture, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really ever going to do anything to jeopardize my career per se.
Yeah.
And so when I heard you were, you know, struggling and got suspended, and it affected me, but you know how it is.
When you're in go mode,
you're just in go mode. You're worried about yourself.
You're worried about yourself,
right?
at that point.
Exactly. Even your family, you don't even like check on too much.
Well, here's the thing too, Hammer. At that point in your career, when you went from Jersey to Montreal, I mean, things in your career changed, right? You go on to make the All-Star team. You go on to score 26 goals. You go on to set a record for the most power play goals by a defenseman in a season. So your trajectory was fucking to the moon as I am falling off of the moon. Right. And I just remember going into those treatment centers and like watching the games on TV, because I'd spend 90 days in there, right? And I'd still have the games on, and I'd see you playing and a couple of guys that I knew, and you just felt so sort of lost. This is before I understood the whole disease concept.
Totally.
I thought it was
like,
willpower.
Why me? Exactly.
My dad, like, get your fucking shit together, kid.
Why this big tough guy? Everyone's looking at you like you know.
Yeah. Why can't you
snap out of it? Bro?
Why can't you snap out of it?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I'd be like, fuck, I'm trying here.
Yeah.
And I don't know why my head just all of a sudden, like, I would get, every 2 weeks we'd get our paychecks, and for me that they were big fucking paychecks.
Yeah.
And as soon as I'd get the paycheck,
it was go time.
It was go time.
Yeah, I know.
Right? No matter what I had on the line.
Yeah.
So part of this whole reason for me starting the podcast was, I wasn't necessarily looking for guests, But if I was going to bring a guest on, it was somebody that I admired their journey in recovery, like living their life without alcohol or drugs, right? And I think, you know, we can get into it a little bit, but when I was working with the LA Kings, all I remember is this, is Rob Lake called me in the office and he goes, Myhres, have you talked to Hammer?
This is probably like 2015, maybe 16.
16.
Yeah, and we hadn't talked
We
for
haven't
a
even
while.
talked for a while.
For a while.
I don't even know
been
what you're
retired
doing.
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I knew you got the job with the Kings.
Yeah.
You know, we just had lost touch.
We lost
right?
touch.
Yeah.
And he goes, Myhres, have you talked to Hammer? And I said, no, why? And he goes, rumor is he's not doing good.
Yeah.
And I go, well, what do you mean not doing good? And he goes, well, not doing good. Like, and I said, oh, okay. So then I reach out and let's go through it, Hammer, let's talk about Edmonton.
Yeah.
And let's talk about what really fucking happened with that organization and with the injuries and how that was handled, because I want to know about that.
Well, you know, in 2007, I just had a couple good seasons that I'd put together. So I was a free agent, unrestricted free agent. So I knew I was going to, you know, potentially land somewhere for good money. And the two teams that you know, everyone thinks free agency is so smooth and you just pick the team and you get all this money, and there's a lot of stress that goes into it because every guy that's signing is taking up a spot somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. And someone else becomes available. And it was really stressful. And in the first like couple hours of free agency, the two places where I was going to go, who I'd talked to and basically had, you know, we're trying to sign one of these two guys. And once we get that figured out, we'll know how much. Well, one team, which was the Rangers, signed two guys. So I was out there right away. The next team was the Kings, and they were trying to sign either Gomez or Drury.
Gotcha.
And so Lombardi called and said, we're not going to spend that much money on one defenseman. We're going to get four different guys. So very first 2 hours of free agency kind of changed my whole landscape of what was out there. Fast forward to about 8 or 9 days into it, you know, deals were coming, they were going. I was going through a lot of personal stuff with my ex-wife and kids, and I just had a baby who was born in May, and there was a lot of personal stuff that was happening. I just come off my 4th or 5th shoulder surgery too that summer.
Oh, before Edmonton?
Yeah. So that year when I was a free agent, people were wanting me to fly in and do a physical. Well, I wouldn't pass a physical. So like if Washington or, you know, Detroit's calling me, I'm like, well, I'm not going there because I'm going to fail it. I'm not ready till, you know, I'd had surgery in May and I wouldn't be ready for the next season. Well, Edmonton came along, and at first I was like, no chance. And I talked to Kevin Lowe, and he, you know, we kind of had this conversation. They had been to the Stanley Cup Finals a couple years before. They lost Chris Pronger.
Yeah.
And so they weren't looking at me to replace Chris Pronger. Obviously, no one could do that, but they were trying to have a blueprint of a team that they had a couple years before, and I fit in there like that. So he understood my injury history. You know, as I started talking to him about it and talking to my family about it, my mom and dad are from, you know, they live in Edmonton. I grew up an Oilers fan, and they were like all for it. They couldn't believe it, right? And it just started making sense. So it took a couple days because my heart wasn't really like it. I had to get used to that idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, I go there and, you know, I was hurt. I wasn't ready to start that season and yada, yada.
27 million helped too.
Yeah. But
I mean, you could have got that from New York. You could have got.
I had bigger offers. That wasn't the biggest offer. So everyone sees this money like that. I got this crazy deal, and like that was.
Oh, that wasn't even the big. Oh, I thought Edmonton was offering the most money.
No, they didn't offer the most money. But what happened was. It was fitting my lifestyle at the time, Canadian dollars. I'm living in Malibu. My family's there to help me with my kids, taxes. Yeah. So it starts to make sense if you want it to make sense. And that's kind of what happened there. A lot of injuries there.
So take us through, because the one that I saw was when you went back to get the puck. And for those of you who haven't seen this, I thought you were fucking dead.
Yeah.
You went back hard to get a puck.
Yeah.
Jerome McGill, I don't know if it was a stick. I don't think that he purposely meant to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he did. But he got your feet, and you went into the boards at fucking 30 miles an hour fucking head first, right?
Yeah.
That's the one I saw going, oh, that didn't look good.
Yeah.
Concussion there?
Yeah, first real concussion. You know, we've had, I don't know, someone asks you, hey, Brantt, how many concussions you've had? You would go, I don't know how many diagnosed, probably 7 or 8.
Yeah.
That one was, it kind of changed my career in a little bit, because it's the first time I'd had an injury like that.
Yeah.
That I couldn't outthink it. Like, you get a shoulder surgery or my knee or my wrist, I'm like, this ain't keeping me down. It's just you know.
And you missed how long from the concussion?
That was like the first or second game, maybe third game, and I didn't come back till maybe February.
So you come back February, and then you fight them right off the draw. You guys take your helmets off, you square off, and you guys go at it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You break your wrist, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, take us through what happens after that.
So what happened in that whole situation is Jerome is one of the most professional guys that ever play.
100%.
And he called me, the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Iggy. He's awesome.
So it's a big rivalry, right? Edmonton and Calgary. And so we go into Calgary. We're a shitty team that year. We're getting thumped like 4 or 5-1 after the second period. I'm walking out to go play, and Tom Rennie, gives my jersey a tug, and he says, hey, if you want to get someone back, now's the time. And
so
no one had ever done that in my career. I know what my job is.
Tom did that to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that made me mad.
Yeah, no
because
shit.
At this time, like I was, I was putting up points. I felt like I was, like, someone telling me to fight didn't make sense to me.
You're 8 years in the show, and he's telling you got to go fight somebody.
I'd been that was like my 12th or 13th year. You know what I mean?
So now you go out.
So now I go out and I say, Iggy, you want to do this? And he goes, yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
Like, he goes, because we'd had conversations off the ice. I'm like, he felt awful. And I'm like, don't worry about it, bro. It was an accident.
So that was Tom Rennie based almost.
So, exactly.
Away.
And then I was like pissed because I wanted to get out of Edmonton at that point.
Yeah.
I had a couple of years left on my deal, and I wasn't seeing eye to eye with the management.
Who was the GM?
Kevin Lowe. And that year where I really started having problems with Steve Tambellini.
Okay, so Steve Tambellini was the GM. Who was the coach?
We had co-coaches. We had Pat Quinn and Tom Rennie.
Okay.
So it was fucked up from the top to the bottom. It was so dysfunctional because we didn't know who to, Pat Quinn would come in and he'd tell us something and he'd leave, and then Tom Rennie would go, guys, scratch that. We want you to do this. It was just really...
So it was a fucking sort of bit of a gong show.
It was a circus.
So the wrist breaks. You go to the hospital, okay? Yeah. What happens after that?
So I break my hand. It's a boxer's fracture. Pretty simple.
Massive scar.
But it's a pretty simple surgery. Okay. I wanted to go to LA because I was living in LA at the time. It was a week before Olympic break.
Okay.
Back then we were getting 2 weeks off for the Olympic break.
Yeah.
And I said I wanted to go to LA and get the surgery. And they said no. Now I'd asked for a trade. So now I'm kind of in a little bit of we're not seeing eye to eye. And now they're thinking I'm like this spoiled brat who wants to change the organization.
And this is your third year?
This is my third year.
Okay, you're going into your third. You signed for 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my third year. And so they're asking me things they can do to make it better. I'm like, hey, let's get a wives lounge so, our kids and our wives can go somewhere after a game and not be harassed by all the guys drinking beer and telling us how bad we are.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Just play hockey. We brought you here to play hockey. It was good enough for Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier. And I'm like, oh, fuck, okay.
So it's one of those. It's not getting through.
It's not getting through. They're thinking I'm like, mailing it in because I want to get traded. And we just weren't seeing eye to eye. So they say, no, you're going to have this surgery here in Edmonton. So I call my agent. I'm like, they actually changed the rules after all this stuff.
Wow.
And I said, why? And they said, because it's an easy surgery. We know, we have a plan too. If we can trade you, we're going to trade you. And so anyways, I get this surgery. I come out. I go to LA. It's about 10 days into the Olympic break. I got to go back to Edmonton to have a checkup on my hand. And then I'm going to fly to Nashville to meet the team because they're on a road trip coming off the thing. Well, the day the day before I got to go back to Edmonton, I get out of the shower and there's these 2 pins and they're sticking about this far out of my. I don't even know how they can make them so long. And I look and I'm like, and I push them back in my hand, and it was like a hot knife through butter. I didn't feel anything. There was no pain, no nothing. So I'm like, whatever. But every time I'd move my hand, I'd walk around, these pins would be out. So I was pushing them in for a day, out and in, out and in. Yeah. Well, this morning I'm flying back to Edmonton. I get on the plane. Actually, I'm sitting in the lounge before getting on the plane, and I put my arm on a armrest, and I go, oh, fuck, what was that? And I look, and my arm is like, my elbow's really swollen. I'm like, oh, fuck, this kind of sore. I get on the plane, and now my shoulder's sore. We get in the air, 3 hours. I land, and my trainer's picking me up there, and he sees me, and he's like, bro, are you okay? I go, dude, I'm so sick. I couldn't pick my bag up off the conveyor belt. My trainer had to get it. I go, dude, I'm not kidding. Like, I still don't know what's going on. I got to see the doctor the next day. Well, about 10 o'clock that night, I called an ambulance, and they came and picked. I was so sick. I was so sick, Myhres. I had this old heater. I had a blanket over my head. I'm sweating. I'm starting to get like a little delirious. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before.
So what's happening is
I have a major infection. So I have a blood and a bone infection because I've been sticking these pins back in.
They didn't fucking realize that was going on by the swelling in the elbow or the pain in the shoulder.
I was in LA, so I wasn't. They weren't around like keeping an eye on me. Okay, so the surgery's good. You're going to go and do your rehab in LA. I was going to like this place. And so anyways, I land. That night I get really sick. I'm in the hospital. Take an ambulance because you can't drive yourself, okay? So I get to Edmonton. I get to the hospital. I get on an IV drip. The doctor says, we got to get you to the U of A. He goes, you're in bad shape. Okay, so I go there. 3 days in ICU. They got to recut my hand open. I got this major infection. The nurse comes in one day and says something, and I said, "Oh, you can keep me alive?" And she said, "Oh, honey, we're not worried about your." Oh, I said, "What are you gonna do? Cut it off?" And she goes, "Honey, we're not worried about your hand. We're worried about this getting to your heart and killing you." And she said it, and I knew she was serious. And I just kind of laid back in the bed, and I'm like, "Fuck, really? This is what's going on?" And so it was 3 days. Like I said, I was in the ICU. I got really, really, really sick. They were going to amputate my hand. They were talking like it was on the table, as an option. I couldn't believe this. And one of my assistant trainers comes to the hospital one day, and he comes and sees me, and I'm in ICU, bro. I'm sick, right? And he goes, "Oh, you're sick." And I said, "Yeah, you think?" And he said, "Well, just so you know, the management thinks you're faking this injury because you don't want to play for the Oilers."
You're faking it?
Yeah. Now, they hadn't seen me, and I couldn't tell them because I got so sick. So I wasn't like, hey, I'm not seeing, Dr. Nadeau tomorrow.
But where the fuck did faking it come from? Like, was that in your character?
No, I think they just, like I said, we're button heads at the time, and they thought I just didn't want to play for them anymore. So did
Tambellini say that to your agent then?
They didn't say it to my agent, but they said it through the organization and came down to me. So I said, "Oh, really?" And now I'm all hopped up on drugs, and I'm super emotional because they're giving me this medicine that's really fucking with my emotions. And so I picked up my phone and I called Tambellini and I called Kevin and I told them what I thought. And I think I left a message for Daryl too. Daryl Cates was the owner.
The owner, yeah.
And I just told them all they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
And so that season ends, my year-end physical. I said, just move me. This isn't going to work. And summer goes. We're to report to training camp the next day in Edmonton. So I go to skate with the team as we do before. And I get a call from our PR guy. So I have one skate. And now I'm in great shape because I'm ready to come back and kick ass because I want to get traded now, right? Yeah, and it's up to now. It's in the ball's in my court. And so the PR guy calls me and he says, "Hey, you can't skate with the team tomorrow." It's like before camp. So this isn't even a team thing yet. And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You're not invited to training camp, so Tambellini doesn't want you skating with the boys." I said, "Okay." I packed up my bag. I went back to LA. I called my agent. Yeah. I said, "This is what happened." He said, "Okay, let me find out." Camp opens. season starts, I'm still sitting at home. I'm like, what's going on? And so my agent calls me, goes, hey, they're going to send you down the minors. And they're not going to send you down to their minor league team. We're going to send you to a team so you're away from all these young guys because they think I'm going to poison them with how bad the organization is, right? So they send me to Hershey.
Yeah.
And that was it. I went down there in my third game, you know, after being asked to fight 20 times. I finally fought a kid, broke my hand again. And that was it. So the whole season was basically done for me again.
And that's where we come to the crossroads.
That's right.
Of why me and you are sitting here today.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have, you know, a connection and a brotherhood through hockey, but we also have, I think, a way, way stronger connection through our sobriety.
Yeah.
And recovery. And then so for anyone that doesn't know how bad it got for you, like, where did it start? It started through the injuries, but then when you shut her down after Anaheim or Dallas, I believe.
Yeah, Anaheim.
Okay, Anaheim.
Yeah.
And you leave there, what does that look like for you? How does that start to progress to the point where you get rushed to a hospital?
So my So there was a lot of injuries that I had, right? So I would take, for me, it was the painkillers. I know for a lot of people, it was the booze, right?
Yeah.
For me, it was the painkillers because I grew up around alcoholics. And I didn't ever want to look like that. I didn't ever want to be that loud.
And pills had a fucking doctor's signature
It was
on
almost like,
it was like,
it's okay. It's like, it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
no one's prescribing you 4 beers at night, but here, take 4 oxys and you'll be
and look
okay.
at the scars and the surgery.
Yeah, but you
and
need
your head's
more,
going.
like, exactly.
You got fucking money in the bank. You got time
now I
on
have
your
nowhere
hands.
to be.
Nowhere to be.
My career's over, right? So I would say that Hershey changed a little bit because I was hurt a lot that year. It was easy to get pills. I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
I'm still making big money, and so
because you told me you started out one time with 3 or 4, and then you said that felt not bad. You said, but Myhres, when I took 7, I thought, oh, that's the fucking,
that's it.
That's
right
it. Oh, and then I took 12.
Yeah.
And oh, now that's the new one.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then 15, 20,
25, 30,
50. And I'm listening to you. I'll never forget. We're sitting by the fire smoking a cigar, and you started telling me this story.
Yeah.
And I started to feel like I was going to fucking have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Because now you're saying you're reaching over in the middle of the night, you got a fucking candy jar full of pills, and you just grab a handful and you go, I think that's enough.
Yeah.
And you down them just to get your day going, right?
Just to sleep the rest of the night.
Just to sleep the rest of the night. Then to get started, you reach in another fucking handful. So now you're up to 100 a day?
I was up to more than that.
More than 100 a day?
Almost double that.
Okay.
And people don't believe it, but you've been in rehab. You know what people can
100%.
go through. But I had probably, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but, I've told you this many times. I used to grab them by the handful. I used to buy them by the thousands. Just the insanity. And I took a big handful one day. And I had been, so let's say this is 2016-ish, okay?
Right around the time I hear you're not doing well,
right around the time you hear I'm not doing well. And you called me out of the blue, and I was so surprised. You were the first person that actually called me on this, right? And I'm like, fuck, how would he know that? But it was so obvious. It had to be so obvious to people, right? But so during my career again, I had about 3 years left that I played from the time I was in Hershey. I played a year in Dallas. I played a year in Anaheim, so a couple of years. And then when it was over, I was out. I had no more accountability. I didn't have to look somebody in the eyes. I had nowhere to be. I was still making money for 2 years.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I had a lot of injuries.
Because Anaheim was paying you, was
Anaheim
it 3
paid
or
me for 2 more years. I signed a 3-year contract there and just played the 1 year.
Okay.
And then I broke my hand in the playoffs again. I broke my wrist in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
And then I was going to rehab. I got sat out 1 game in the playoffs. I just wasn't playing good. And I knew that was the end for me. Like, I knew it was right. The end was right there, but I still had 2 more years. And I didn't know how I was going to get through those 2 years.
Yeah.
And they made it easy for me. They didn't make it easy for me. But when I had they said, well, you can keep trying to rehab and come back at 70%. or you get the surgery and you're done.
Oh, okay.
You know, and you go on long-term injured reserve. And so that's what I did. So now I got all this time, I got money, yada, yada, yada.
Now,
So
do you consider yourself at that point, when you start up on those doses with the medications, the pills, are you considering yourself that you have a problem? Like, are you not really like cluing in at this point?
Not really, because I didn't have a ton of
consequences.
There was no consequences
that were going on.
It was actually opposite.
Yeah.
I had wide open spaces now. My runway was long because I didn't have to see anybody.
Good point, yeah.
You know, I was, like I said, I was making money. And that's important.
What was with the kids? Because you have 2 daughters, right?
Yeah.
So where were they at that time?
They were in LA.
Were they witnessing?
They were, but like, let's say 2013 when I had my surgery.
Yeah.
I was taking the pills and I was doing things, but it wasn't every day, all day.
Sure.
At that point. It was starting to get there. And the first time was probably 2014. I wanted to quit. And I'm like, this is a lot. It's costing me a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to quit, and I got really sick. And that was my first time that I was like, oh, wait, this is going to be hard. So I'm going to kick the can down the road. And, you know, I got a couple events coming up, and I got a wedding this summer. So after that, I'll really stop.
Yeah.
And that was 2 years of that, and it just kept escalating, right?
And then comes the organs shutting down, right? And this was the story as I'm smoking this cigar that really took me back. Because I have sort of a similar one on my last night of drinking where, you know, I lost time. I don't remember anything other than, you know, just like I've mentioned before, being in the snow with 2 cops on me, right? Blacked out. But now consequences come. And for you, when they took you to the hospital, because you were basically flatlining, you were fucking almost dead at that point, right? You're in the hospital, you're going through all this psychosis almost, right? Trying to get the brain to get rewired and to blah, blah, blah. At that point, when they're ready to release you, are you saying, is that where you went to rehab?
No. So it kind of, it didn't happen exactly like that. So what happened was, I knew I was in trouble, right? I was in a relationship at the time, and I hated everything about my life at the time. This person I was in a relationship with had lost someone to drugs and to painkillers, and was kind of telling me, you know, the road I was going down, and I'm like, I got this, right? I'm a big I got this guy. And so actually the first time that I really got into, you know, I'm going to go to recovery was it was to get the heat off me. You know, I was coming back from somewhere and I had a bunch of pills and got caught, and I go, okay, I'm gonna go get the heat off me, right? And so I went to my first rehab, called the NHL doctors, who everyone has their own experience. So they saved my life.
Yeah, me too.
You know, everyone has their own experience.
The NHLPA and the NHL saved
both questions.
Both of our lives.
We run in a lot of parallel things, right?
Time,
our lives.
Big time.
So I went, after I was going in for 30 days, after 21 days, I said, I'm good.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
And they're like, and you know, Dave or Dan Cronin, who we know, came in, and he's like, Dave Lewis came in, like, you know, should you believe? And I said, yeah, I got stuff to do at home. I've been gone for 3 weeks. You know, how is the world going to revolve without me being there?
Yeah.
And so anyways, that I came out after 21 days, and I started doing, I was like cherry picking what I wanted to do in recovery. I'd go to the odd meeting because that was the easiest part to do. Yeah. I went to one way across town in Las Vegas where I didn't know anybody anyways, and my ego was still so big. It was still so fresh. People are going to recognize me when I walk in, and none of which was true, right? Yeah. So I did that for 6 months, and I wasn't really working a program or anything. This is 2017 now. That was January 17. And my life was getting worse being sober. It was getting worse. Like my relationship was like I was out. You know, it was my life was getting worse, and now I didn't have an escape.
Yeah.
Right. So after about 6 months, I went back out that summer, right around July 4th. So about 6-7 months from rehab. And I went hard for a few months.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, where this was my second rehab that I was going to go to now. And now I knew, like, things were happening in my life where it was dangerous, you know, like with driving and, you know, falling down at home because I couldn't get my balance because I had some, like, just crazy shit, right?
Yeah.
And so this second rehab I went to was in September of 2017. And that's, I think, we were talking about where I had the psychosis.
Yeah.
And same thing, ICU for a few days. And that wasn't from being overdosed or anything like that. That was from quitting.
Sorry, that wasn't ODing. That was with withdrawals off the meds, which you fucking
in a day. It wasn't even a day.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, bro, when you're doing 100 and some pills a day,
yeah,
that is you gotta like. However, medically they got to get you off that slowly.
Well, they couldn't because now I'm mixing pills. So now I'm doing painkillers and I'm doing like Xanax because now I want to sleep longer at night because I'm taking so many pills. I'm like, well, I know what's gonna.
Yeah.
I know how I can solve that is I'm just going to take a couple of these sleepers and then I can sleep for 6 hours instead of having to wake up twice in the middle of the night to eat pills.
Yeah, yeah. So let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Which is we both went down a crazy journey. I mean, I never woke up there when I was a young kid and said, you know what, I want to be the only player suspended for life for cocaine from the National Hockey League. I wanted to score goals. I wanted to play hockey. But it happened, and it put me in the spot that I'm in today. And I think for the listeners that are listening to this, like I want to emphasize sobriety and how it's changed our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know personally for me, when I got sober back in 2008, all I knew is that if I continued to not listen to my head, they said, make sure that you got fucking smart feet. And I said, what do you mean by that? They said, you got feet that get you to a meeting.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what your head says, because your head's been your worst enemy. Fucking rely on those feet to get you there.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I went to 365 meetings in a year because I didn't want to go back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I hung on, and at 3 years, I get the call to start a business in Calgary, and then run that, clean my credit up, my life goes well. Being a great dad, I get a call from the LA Kings. My point is, that only happens when I'm sober. Good stuff that comes into my life, and I've spent mostly every summer with you and Tess, and now you have a beautiful angel baby boy.
Yeah,
I have a beautiful baby boy too.
Yeah.
Which. We're both fucking.
That's right. We both lost our dads.
We both lost our dads. We have little sons now that I believe our old man's had a part in that.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
And I'm 50, and I'm cleaning shitty diapers, and I fucking love every minute of it.
Same.
Right?
Same. Same.
He's just. And Peanut, I love my sweetheart too, and your girls, but without me staying sober, none of this happens.
That's right.
We just saw a fucking guy on the street coming up here, right?
Yeah.
And we saw what type of shape he was in. Well, we're not far from there if we don't turn our lives around, right?
I'm one decision away from that.
And so anyways, I just wanted to say that, like, for me personally, and I'll let you chime in on it, but everything good in my life that has come is because I've stayed sober.
Yeah.
Right? And, I haven't really shared what happened to me a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I kept that pretty private, and I told you, and I told a couple people, but I took my 14-year cake in 2020. Mm-hmm. And it was right after COVID. The book came out in February, and it was in the middle of COVID. And around September, I wanted to just get out. The meeting shut down. There was Zoom, but the gyms were shut down. There were some things that I did that in my sobriety, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
Right. I was alone.
Working out.
I was alone.
Part of sobriety,
I was trying to run back and forth in my house just to get some exercise.
Yeah.
I was going fucking, my head wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
And that little guy said, maybe a drink will solve this, right?
Yeah.
And the insanity started to pick up every day. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to move home.
Yeah.
I'm going to get as far away from everybody.
Get out of Edmonton, move back to Cold Lake.
Right? The world's fucking coming to an end.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And everybody
that's
else
how they were
everybody
presenting
else,
it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I've got a beer in front of me and I'm ready to pour it. And I've got 14 years of sobriety and I just had a #1 best-selling book come out on my life.
Yeah.
And I pour it and I take a drink. And the first sip, I'll never forget it. It was this like sadness. I was so fucking sad that I just relapsed after 14 years.
Yeah.
And I had 3 beer, and I got up and I had a glass of water. It was 9 o'clock at night, and I went and laid in bed. And there was no euphoria, there was no partying. I was sad. I thought, well, maybe tomorrow if I change up the beer, I'll feel better.
Yeah.
So I buy different beer. Same feeling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I'm calling you, crying.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not. Fuck. I don't want to continue this way.
Yeah.
I haven't done drugs, thank God, in 16 years.
Yeah.
I stayed away from drugs.
Yeah.
So that was something that God had a hand in, because my MO is to burn it to the fucking ground with coke and hookers, and that's it, right?
Totally.
Like that's just blow my money.
That's how it's always been.
It's always been that way. So anyways, just fast forward it. 2 months ago or a month and a half ago when I went for my 50th birthday, you gave me my 2-year coin.
Yeah. Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it back.
Yeah, which meant a lot to me the last 2 years, grinding it out, dude.
Yeah.
And not really grinding it out in a bad way, because, I still get on my knees every morning and every night and thank God for my sobriety in my life. But I got to tell you, getting sober this time was way different and way almost harder, because the first time I had 50 people in a treatment center
telling me what to
do,
yeah,
and all that.
You can't go anywhere. You can't leave the house.
Exactly. So now I'm by myself.
Now you got to do this for you.
And it's me. It's me and the big man upstairs talking to each other every day and talking to you and getting 1 week, 1 month sober again.
Yep.
Feeling shame. I told you I didn't want to tell anybody because I was so embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that 1 year, I'm going, okay, I got a year coin. Okay, when I get 2, I'm going to see Shelly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I went to see you, and you guys gave me my 50th birthday cake, and you gave me a 2-year coin. So, anyways, thanks, bro.
No, bro. When I was down and out, so you'd think that after we talked about when I went to my second treatment and I was psychosis, ICU, don't know if I'm gonna live or die. And I went there, I didn't tell anybody where I was going because I was so ashamed. I'm like, I got to go see a brain doctor. Because I was burning it down.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to go to Dallas and see this brain doctor.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, again, I called Dr. Dan and Dave Lewis at the NHL.
Shout out to Dan Cronin.
Yeah, big shout out to Dan Cronin.
Brian Shaw.
Yeah, these guys,
I love those guys.
there was no questions asked. They said, well, your first one, I kind of went to the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
They said, well, this one is going to be a little different. You're going. I said, I'll go Sunday. And Dan said, you'll go tomorrow because you're not going to be alive on Sunday. He goes, so you're going tomorrow. And I said, okay. That's not my sobriety date even. Do you know what I mean? Like I've relapsed after that.
But you have how many years now, Shelly?
It's coming up on 4 again.
Yeah, dude.
But I guess what I was going with that was that like I had to see, when I came out of that rehab, Tess, who I met in my first rehab, people always ask us how we met. And I'm like, well, we met at rehab, and people kind of laugh, right? And it's the #1 place not to meet somebody. But Tess.
Yeah.
I say she saved my life as well because she was sober and she's kept her sobriety. When I went to that second rehab and I didn't tell her, she thought I died.
Yeah.
Right? We weren't dating or anything then. We were just friends. We had lost like 6 or 7 people from that treatment center. From when I met her in January till October, we lost about 6 young, good people from the rehab we went to.
Wow.
And so I didn't tell her. We had talked and, I was out of another relationship and like I swore to God that I was just going to work on myself and whatever. And so I go to this treatment center, and I have a really, really bad experience, really tough with getting sick in there. And when I came out, Tess was there, and I knew it was going to be a little different. And we started talking more. I said, yeah, thanks for calling me when you did. And I was, in such denial, whatever. So you walked me through a fire, and I had to see, you introduced me to the AA guy. You introduced me to this whole group of people, because I was doing meetings with Tess, mixed meetings, something that was real comfortable for me, right? Because I could just go and sit in the back of the room, have a coffee, not say shit. And you said, hey, we're going to go to these other meetings. You're still working with the Kings. I moved back to LA.
Yeah.
And you were like my big brother, and I had to see, I knew what you went through to get sober. Like I walked through some of that with you, and I knew what you went through, and you were always a guy, and it's not in a bad way, but I was always like, if Brantt can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Like this guy was, we've had a lot of nights at the bar together. I'm like, if he can get sober, I have a chance, right? And so we walked through that together. You got me into meetings. I started picking and choosing some of the stuff I wanted to do. I could do step 9 because I just have to apologize to someone. No big deal.
Yeah.
And then same thing in COVID in 2020. In March 2020, I went out. And a few months, I wasn't planning on killing myself or anything like that. But I remember I got called out by Tess in July, and she said, hey, I know you're using. And I said, yeah. And I told you, I've never told anyone else except Tess. Well, she was in the car with me when I had this experience that I feel like God touched me on the shoulder, my dad.
With your dad.
Right? Yes. And I told you that, and you were like...
blown away.
And I didn't... When Tess told me that, and I looked at her, and I seen the disappointment in her eyes, it was the first time in my life that I realized that I was hurting somebody else. Yeah. Because before it was all about me. I got the money, I got cars, I got my house. Like, fucking leave me alone, dude.
And she now is with Sheldon. You're fucking retired, bro. You're out of the game.
There's no...
You're in treatment center, dude. So this girl isn't with you because you guys are playing at Staples Center on a Saturday night.
I don't want to tell her story, but she relapsed because she thought I had died because I didn't call her when I was in my second rehab. But she had stayed sober when she got out.
Story. Yeah.
And so... she was the first call when I got out. We started doing meetings, to go back over that. And anyways, when I had relapsed in 2020, I was really embarrassed, and I called you and I said, dude, this happened. And you're like, okay. And it was the first time I felt love from like a brother. Yeah. You kind of gave me that. Hey,
it's all good.
It's all fucking good, bro. Man. What are you going to do? You're going to go to a meeting tonight, or what are you gonna... And it was such a relief because I had told somebody, right? And I looked up to you like a big brother, not only in hockey. Hockey was one part of it because I had my own career, but I really looked up to how you turned your life around, right? And now you're like taking time, you're calling me, hey, and we never talked AA stuff.
No.
So I think it's important to say.
We were just, you know what? Listen, AA has worked for me. It's not for everybody. Yeah. There's other routes to get clean, to get sober, to be in your own style of recovery, and I fucking support every one of them.
And also as a friend, you don't have to be, like, if you see your friend struggling, you don't have to be in AA or be sober.
100% you don't
person,
have. Of course not.
Right?
No, not at all.
But I think people feel sometimes like... Like, well, here I am having a glass of wine, and I'm going to tell Brantt that he can't have a glass, or whatever he's doing isn't right, and so
it's funny you say that because, like, when you talk about Tess and you talk about like how she was like a guardian angel for you, and you guys are married and you have your beautiful baby boy, and I see the life that you guys lead, and dude, as far as like women go. For me, I've always told you that I was, yearning for love, and it's been so long. It's been 10 years since I've like truly been in love with somebody, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm like, I'm gonna up the ante, and I was thinking to myself, what would I do? And I'm like, well, if I have a referral fee, let's say, right? That anybody refers my future fiance or future wife, they get $100K. Yeah. No, fuck, bro. Seriously. $100,000. Okay.
Yeah.
The minute I walk in, and I buy a ring for my future wife, I'm going to wire that person $100,000.
Yeah.
And here's how I justified it.
Yeah.
If I meet her in the next six months because of this, right? And we live to be 90, that's $2,500 a year.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it.
It's worth it.
It's one night in Vegas.
It's one night in Vegas,
Yeah.
right? It's chewing tobacco for like 6 months.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So my point is, why not make the referral fee? You never know. I stand by my word that I'll back that up. That if somebody has a connection or think that there's a right girl for me, I will wire them $100,000 in their bank.
Yeah.
Why not? I have nothing to lose now, bro. I'm 50.
Yeah.
I've been 10 years single.
I know.
It'll work out to being $2,500 a year, and I'm going to do it. Done. Offers out there. Referral fee.
Well,
Over.
buddy, I'm going to go through my phone. I'm going to send you. No, back to I think, and it's important. Like when you called me and you said you had gone out. Like we've been brothers since probably 16 or 17. We'd been best buddies, right?
Yeah.
Once we reconnected over sobriety, we've been
Best buddies.
Best buddies.
Yeah.
And you know, when you told me that you had relapsed, I know, like I know that Canada was feeling it maybe even harder than anywhere else because you had all these restrictions, and it seemed like the world was really getting small. And I knew you were going through some shit, and but I wasn't there. We couldn't travel, you know. And when you told me you relapsed, dude, I remember sitting on that counter where you know my house. You've been there many times, and I cried. It was the first time that I cried for somebody else, right? I'm like, fucking Myhres went out, like, and the first thought after like being sad like that was, what did he do for me? There's no judgment. There's no fucking, it's your life.
Yeah.
Like I'm sober.
Yeah.
Like I was sober at that time. So I'm like, well,
Yeah, that helped me, dude.
it's like, we got to
Yeah.
pay it. And that's what the sobriety thing is all about. It's about paying it forward, paying it back and paying it forward. And, yeah. And here we are, like, you know, getting 2 years. I know you were ashamed, just like I was,
Yeah.
right? Like everything that's kind of happened in my life, you've kind of, you followed it somehow. We have very similar lives with our kids, with the exes, with whatever, right? And I guess my whole point to that was it affected me because you have such a big place in my life, right?
Yeah.
So it affected me when you went out, and it also affected me when you came in for your 50th and got 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that was like climbing Mount Everest,
Yeah, I
right? Because we
remember-
went through some shit.
Yeah, it was
then
weird.
we got
We were
that
sitting at that meeting in Vegas. It was my birthday that day.
Yeah.
March 18th.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and a couple guys are getting coins for their birthdays, right?
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, and I'm sort of waiting or whatever, and you waited to the end, you
Right to the
fucker.
fucking end.
But you waited to the end, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden you just reach over and you give me the coin, and I keep it in my vehicle. I keep it right in my car.
Yeah.
And that those 1 and 2 year coins really mean a lot to me, you know. And I think we can sort of wrap it up with, for me, you know, my relationship with my boy Kane, and obviously Peanut. She saw her daddy. My kids have never seen me drink,
Yeah.
and they've never seen me do a drug,
Right.
right? So, if somebody asked me what's your proudest moment, it would be that with my children.
Yeah.
You know, writing the book, I think that for me, being as vulnerable as I could, right? Letting the public know that, like, listen, you know, we're going to scrape our knees along this journey, and they're going to get fucking bloody, and grab another Band-Aid.
Yeah.
And keep putting your Band-Aids on. It's called life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But being in a position I am today, I think that I just owe what I have to my spirituality, my sobriety, best friends like you in my life that I could count on, you know, you saw my face and you guys got me that cake. Like I'm not used to that kind of love from people, you know? So, and then with you and your little man right now, we're going to have like some good times as dads together, you know, growing up, and our bond is just, I think it's pretty unbreakable at this point.
These are like the days we prayed for.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, everyone has a different journey in AA. You certainly haven't been traditional with it. I haven't been traditional with it. One thing we do though, I think, with each other is we're honest about things when shit's going on, because we've been down, like I felt like I was most embarrassed when I came back. Here I am, 2 rehabs, I almost die, and I'm going out again, you know? And that really, really affected me, and the way that you reacted to that. And we talked about things, right? Imagine if we have kids again. And I know Chloe was a big reason why you got sober. Yeah. My kids too. Like I didn't want my mom and my kids to be going to school and explaining to their classmates that, you know, their dad who played for the Anaheim Ducks died a drug addict. Like I didn't want to do that to my kids. Or my mom.
Or your mom.
Or my mom. And so I know we sat and talked about, like, well, if we ever had boys and this and that, and here we are, like 40. This is what I've learned in recovery for me, is that everything that I think I know, all these things, like 5 years ago, I would have taken everything I have, all the money, everything I have, I would have put it in the middle, and I would have said, there's 2 things that I'm never going to do. I'm never getting married again. And I'm never having kids again. I have my 2 girls that are amazing. Yeah. I've been in the relationships. I'm good. Yeah. I'm 45 years old, bro. I don't need more. I don't need more responsibility. And I'm married and I got a 4-month-old boy. And like you said, I told Tess, you know, it was like, I told her all the things I wasn't going to do, right? Yeah. I'm not changing diapers. I'm not getting up in the middle of the night. I'm not doing these. And she's like, okay. Okay, I hear you. Bro, I'm up with that kid every morning, 6 a.m. bottling. I look over his crib when I wake him up, and he's looking back and he's smiling. And my girls love him. Yeah. Right? My girls love him, and they're awesome. I guess what I'm saying, it's a long-winded way to say it, is what I've learned is I know shit. Mm-hmm. I do this. It's a day at a time.
You make plans and God laughs.
He laughs, bro. And my life is so much
my whole life
better.
Like that.
Exactly.
You know, and looking back, buddy, everything that we've been through, what we've just talked about, like, you know, it's made us who we are today. I think that I needed to hear stories of inspiration early on when I was first getting sober, that it is achievable. And I'm just proud of you, man. I really thank you for coming all the way down here and doing this with me. And I love you, bro.
I love you, dude. This is gonna help a lot of people. You've changed my life. You've changed Tess's life, and now we have a lot of life left to live. So I know you're gonna kick ass. Thanks for having me on here and talking to you, bro. I love you, man.
Love you, buddy.
When it all goes slipping away, when it all keeps slipping away,